And go.
Aloha! It's us again. Video 3, final video. It'd be pretty quick, I think. So the overview of this is we're going to talk about the high neutral bow and the high aggressive. I wasn't going to say bow, but the high neutral and the high aggressive stances. The second thing is go means go. And that's comes strictly from sparring. When the center referee says go or fight, you don't go hajimeha. You don't go like this. You don't go like this. You go, or you go, or you go, or whatever. Because we have these things called lines of attack and paths of attack. This is a line of attack. This is a path of attack. We're going to avoid those things by not being in the position when the guy said go. We're going to be someplace else. The third thing is how our hips control our feet, and we rotate from a natural fighting stance to an aggressive fighting stance. It's in the hips.
Back up a little bit.
Right? So I'm in my fighting stance to Chris, and then I'm going to pop into here. Notice I've formed the weapon with the transition, right? So I'm here, the hips rotate, I pivot on the ball, the entire ball of the foot, and I'm ready to go. Now, there are some people who say that you're not stable, that you're not strong, and you can't do this and do that. If you learn to do your patterns pushing off rather than just stepping, that's not an issue. It's how you train that's important. Okay, so he's going to demonstrate the neutrals.
Yeah. So the difference between the high neutral and the high aggressive neutral. Within postmodern Kempo and especially Christian Kempo, we have dropped the traditional neutral bow. Just step back, find your perfect neutral bow with your perfect toe-heel alignment and making sure that you can get pushed 10 different ways. We've dropped that for what I believe is a more functional model, which is what we call the high neutral. So here's my traditional neutral bow. My high neutral, I'm going to put my back heel up and off. My hips rotate forward. This is a high neutral and aggressive neutral. My regular high neutral would be my knee is rotated. Both are pointing towards my perspective 130. The aggressive, my hips turn forward. This reinforces something we call hips control feet. We have a phrase that we teach our students: hips control feet, feet control hands. Knees aim kicks, elbows aim strikes. We're putting our money where our mouth is and saying that within our fighting stance, whether it be a neutral or aggressive neutral, hips are the controlling factor. My feet aren't determining what I'm doing. My hips determine what I'm doing. This allows me more mobility, especially as you see our students do something called a step drag. This becomes now a rudder and not an anchor. Versus if I'm in a neutral bow and use my foot maneuvers, let's say a step drag, this is an anchor. I've got to drag that puppy with me. Versus in an aggressive, it helps me determine where I'm going. Comments?
Yeah, just looking at that right now, I say, where's the rudder though? This depends on which direction you're moving. In other words, when I go backwards, the rudder is now in the front of them. It's like a what's those planes with their flaps in the front?
I don't remember.
You got the big wings in the back, and you got you got the little wings that are usually in the. Anyways, it's a reverse plane. It keeps it. The dang thing never is practically will not stall out. So when he says that it's either an anchor or a rudder, yeah, that's my rudder. But if I go back, my rudder's now in the direction that I'm traveling. We won't get into the formula for step drag. But that high neutral actually comes from lazy close kneels or wide kneels. Whoa, I did it. I usually did it. So the lazy wide kneel is just basically here. You see it in a lot of Kempo forms. When you should be doing this, people are doing this. Not enough height manipulation. Not in the ideal. The high aggressive means that I have now lined everything up. Everything in my body agrees with where I'm going. Whether I'm going that way or that way. It doesn't agree with these ways until I step, but then my hips are in charge of my feet anyway. Very important formula. Hips control feet.
Hips control feet is all over postmodern Kempo and Christian Kempo, and it's one of the things that we have instilled, especially in the students here in South Dakota. They do not know the traditional neutral. All they know is either the aggressive or the high neutral from day one, and it shows up. This is fighting. Their mobility is increased, and their ability to put weapons to targets has increased. Which brings us to the next part.
I want to say something real quick.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have to say this. I had my expectations when I was living in California and he was here. When I got here, I realized I have to change my expectations, not lower or raise them. Because Chris, these are his students. So this whole idea of not teaching the neutral bow is interesting because after 4 sparring classes, we have 1 class a week, by the way, you guys. So you get 4 classes a month. The whole idea of not teaching, but teaching that high aggressive or that high neutral is that when about the 4th class of sparring class, they found the neutral bow. And Chris and I looked at each other and went, that's a neutral bow. And we never taught it. We never taught it. You didn't teach it for a year. And I got here and I didn't teach it because I was like, he's the boss. But that's the interesting thing is this gives us the ability to put that heel down. Kind of important in the martial arts. I've heard discussions about Mr. Parker doing that. Should I say that? Yeah. About slamming the heel. Wow. Those conversations and watching him influenced why we do that.
Yes.
Okay.
And next comes to what we call go.
Okay.
In other words, when the center says go or fight or hajime, you move. You don't just stand there and go, I'm going to be a bouncy rabbit. I'm going to be a bouncy, or
you're a target bouncing up and down.
Target bouncing up and down. Also, it instills in our students not being on the line or the path of the attack. If I'm here, standing here, and they go, I am totally open to whatever he's going to throw. Versus, we're just within contact. We're just within contact. If the center says go, this is how I'm going to get go to go. He's on a train, he's on his path of action, and I'm getting the path of attack, and I'm out of it. Also, what this does, if we come back and I just up clock, watch his head. Pop. His head tracks, but his body continues on that line. Now, there is an alternate way of doing this without using the pizza box or the area of the angle. I'm going to go to a left fighting stance, and he's going to be in his right, going to scoot up within contact. Center says go. My hips controlled my feet. I did a sideward step drag on line 2, which is the beginning of what we call Knight's pattern. But once again, watch his head. We're within contact. They say go. Pop. I was totally off and was able to get weapon to target as he's going by. This is what we call go means go. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be backwards or to the side, but it can also be forward. You were going to say something?
No, I was just taking my glasses off.
Taking his
just in case.
Just
in
case. So, for instance, if I'm in the left and we're within contact, and he says go, if I step forward off the line,
I didn't see what you did.
all I did was step to 130.
Oh, okay.
From here, as it comes in, I used line 3. I stepped off the line, but I also got closer. Comments, sir?
Right. It was about, were we doing Knight's pattern in the garage? I don't think so.
Started to.
We had started to. Well, I got divorced in 2011, and I was working that year that I got divorced on something called Knight's pattern. Knight's pattern is a step drag pattern. Actually, I was working about a year earlier in the back in the alley. So it's been about 13 years now, where a Knight's pattern is simply mimicking the up 1 over 2 or the up 2 over 1 of the knight on the chessboard. Now, this is like many of the things in method itself, which is a whole idea of how to train, not a system of patterns and forms and stuff. The idea of method is to learn something and then not think about it. The heel up is method. Bracing forward and the thrusting forward, whatever.
Yeah.
The 2 forward bows, they are things that you learn, and then you use them spontaneously. You don't say, at this point, I do a bracing. No, it's baked in. So the Knights pattern is simply go step drag 1, step drag 2, step drag 3. But it's got how many different ways can you manipulate a horse, and how important is that knight to defending in chess? If you're a chess player, you totally understand that, because it covers so many things and it sets up obstacles. You can't go here because of that piece is related to that piece is related to that piece. So if you lose your knights on a chessboard first, good luck. You better be a master at it.
And that was go means go. And next up is hips control feet. And we're going to demonstrate this by showing something we call 1, 2, 3, which is a combination of numbers that help students understand this weapon to this target in sparring. Now, this is not the rule. This begins a conversation of weapons to targets. In other words, front hand towards the head, a 1 to a 1. Back hands to the body, a 2 to a 2. Number 3 is the legs, whether it's the front or the rear. 1, 2, 3. Notice there, though, when I do the 1, when I go to the 2, hips control feet.
Form the weapon in the transition.
And I've already formed the weapon in the transition for my number 3. I don't have to go from my neutral bow, 1, 2, and now have to rotate and then kick, adding an and to it. I've already removed the and. 1, 2, my 2 was my and. I'm ready to fire or to move.
There's that rudder working either the front or the back. It depends on which direction you're going in. I think we will say the formula for step drag. So.
Go for it.
Okay, the important thing to remember about that is the patterns that come out of what he just showed you. Just simply stand facing me, please. From this high aggressive, I'm going to step, drag, form the weapon, kick, and then there's my 2. So that's a 1 and 3, 2. That's a possible pattern. We were working on that last night. Now, that's what comes from that 1, 2, 3. Any combination, 1, 2, 3. Put the 3 in front of the 1. It's 3, 1, 2. Put the 2 in front of the 3. It's 2, 3, 1. It's like 9 possibilities. I think. There's a lot of possibilities. I don't know math. Sorry. Now, step dragging. The formula we use that I developed is to familiarize the student in the beginning. Again, it's method, so it's learned, and then you get it, and you don't have to think about it until you teach it. The foot closest to Chris moves first in a step drag. The foot further away from him drags second. I go that way. The foot furthest away moves first. The foot closest moves second. That's the formula. It's pretty simple. To understand, boom, 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 boom. If I go that way, this foot is closer. See, into it. Line 1, primary line 1 here is on the ground between my ankles. So I'm going to go 1, 2, or 1, 2. Again, the foot closest to the direction of travel moves first. The foot furthest away moves second. That's our formula. That's one of many formulas.
One of our many formulas. The underlying hidden pseudo math in martial arts. But
pseudo logic, I think.
The pseudo logic. Well, but it's got a mathematical equation to it. So today for sparring, we've covered the high neutral and high aggressive neutral. Go means go, and then hips control feet, which is a big part of what you see in our students once they start sparring. Once they put those pads on and they've got that mouthpiece and they can't talk, these are the things that are covered. Go! And better get out of the way.
The funny thing about that is go is the last thing you hear. First and last thing you hear. You will not, as the fighter, you will not hear your mom and dad. You will not hear your instructor. You might hear the screaming, high-pitched voice of your fellow students yelling at you, go do this, do that, which they shouldn't be doing, by the way. But the first and last thing you hear in a sparring match is go and stop. And in between there, it's up to you as instructors to make sure that they have a plan. You have a plan. It's not just 1, 2, 3, but it's how you move around. How you move around. You're going to see some sparring next week, and we're going to point out a few things that we see as they go on. We're going to debrief during that part of the test. We'll debrief them and say, you did this, you did this, you did this. Great. We can add this to it. But mostly it's just going to be great. I'm glad you did that because you showed the audience what it is we were talking about. Mm-hmm. So you should have a lot of fun if you stick around and watch the test.
Yes. Catch you in one more video.
I think that's it, right?
Well,